Exactly 1 week after Mikko Rantanen was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, we now have another blockbuster trade to talk about. The Vancouver Canucks have finally traded J.T. Miller. There was also another pretty notable trade that happened late last night that I will give you guys my thoughts on in this video, but let's start off with the big one. J.T. Miller has been traded to the New York Rangers along with Eric Brandstrom and Jackson Dorrington. In exchange, the Vancouver Canucks are receiving Philip Hedl, Victor Mancini, and a protected first-round draft pick in the 2025 draft. And the protection on that draft pick is if it lands somewhere in the top 13 picks of the upcoming NHL draft, the pick will then switch to an unprotected 2026 first rounder. Just at first glance, I think this is a very good move for the Rangers. It's not every day the opportunity comes around to be able to go and trade for a 100-point centerman. Now, yes, JT Miller has struggled this season. His finishing especially hasn't been there. He's got just 9 goals in 40 games. But I feel like it's safe to say all of the off-ice distractions and the poor relationship between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson played a huge part in both Miller and Pettersson's mediocre play this season. But now that all of that is a thing of the past and JT Miller is now a member of the New York Rangers, you have to imagine he feels like 1,000 pounds has been lifted off of his shoulders and he can now just go back to focusing on playing hockey. And when JT Miller is on top of his game, he is a dominant offensive force. He brings a very unique combination of size, speed, and skill, has a physical element to his game as well. A 1-2-3 down the middle of JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck, and Mika Zibanejad sounds absolutely nasty. Obviously, this season has not gone the way the New York Rangers would have hoped, at least up until this point. They are on the outside looking in terms of the playoff race in the Eastern Conference, but that is still an organization that is not only just trying to make the playoffs this season, they are trying to compete for a Stanley Cup, and I think by making this trade, they have improved their chances at doing that. Shifting gears now and talking about this trade from the point of view of the Vancouver Canucks, is this an underwhelming return for a player the caliber of JT Miller? I would say yes, but that really should not be a surprise whatsoever, as the Vancouver Canucks had zero leverage in this situation. The behind-the-scenes drama in Vancouver was the worst kept secret in hockey. Everybody knew about the rift in the relationship between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. Not only that, JT Miller has a full no-move clause, so he had the power to basically choose where he was going to end up out of all the teams that were interested in him. At the end of the day, the Vancouver Canucks did the best they could given the circumstances, and I don't think this is an awful return. Philip Hedl is obviously the main piece coming back. Obviously, I think it's fair to have concerns about his health, but when Philip Hedl is in the lineup, he is an effective player. This is a guy who scored 22 goals back in the 2022-23 season. He's scoring at a 20-goal pace this season as well. Throughout his career so far with the Rangers, when he's been in the lineup, he has almost exclusively been their third line center. He really hasn't got an opportunity to get consistent top 6 minutes. I think that all changes now with the Vancouver Canucks, as on paper he is easily the second best centerman on the roster now behind Elias Pettersson. I'm excited to see what Hedl's going to be able to do with a larger role. I don't think it's fair to expect him to come in and be the 90 or 100 point centerman that JT Miller is, but I feel like there is a 60, 70-ish point guy there in Philip Hedl if he can stay healthy. He's also 6 years younger than JT Miller, and by making this trade, the Canucks clear some cap space, as Philip Hedl is on a very team-friendly contract with a cap hit of a little over $4.4 million, and he signed at that number for 2 more seasons after this one. The first-round draft pick is obviously nice too, and if the Rangers aren't able to claw back into a playoff spot this season, and that pick ends up being in the top 13, that 2026 unprotected first could end up being pretty valuable. Arguably the most important aspect of this trade, though, aside from the return Vancouver was able to get for JT Miller, is the fact that all of this drama is now in the rearview mirror and the Vancouver Canucks can focus on winning hockey games and getting back into a playoff spot. I want to show this tweet from Greg Wyszynski on the screen because in my opinion, he summed up this trade really well. He said, "To my Vancouver friends stressing over the return on a player with full no movement protection, the most important player in the trade is Elias Pettersson, who hopefully can be Elias Pettersson again now that Miller's gone." And I really could not agree more. I said earlier in this video that JT Miller probably feels like 1,000 pounds has been lifted off of his shoulders. I think you can say the same thing for Elias Pettersson. Earlier in the season, when J.T. Miller took a leave of absence from the team, in those games that Miller missed, Elias Pettersson dominated and scored at over a 120-point pace. Whatever was going on behind the scenes between Miller and Pettersson was clearly affecting Pettersson's performance. And now that Miller has been traded and all of this drama is in the rearview mirror, hopefully Pettersson can get back to being one of the best centermen in the NHL. And that's really what you have to be hoping for most if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan that is underwhelmed with this return that Vancouver got for J.T. Miller. So those are pretty much all of my thoughts on the J.T. Miller trade. Before I get out of here, I do quickly now want to give you guys my thoughts on the trade that happened late last night between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Calgary Flames. A trade that saw the Philadelphia Flyers acquire Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Pelletier, a second rounder in 2025, and a seventh rounder in 2028 in exchange for Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. I'm a huge fan of this move for the Calgary Flames. Calgary has been one of the more surprising teams in the NHL this season, in my opinion. They're currently occupying the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference. That being said, though, Calgary is still a team that, in my opinion, should be prioritizing their future and not going all in on trying to make the playoffs this season. So I think this is exactly the kind of trade that a team in the position the Calgary Flames are in should be looking to make. You acquire two players in Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee who come in and immediately bolster the top nine. They make the Calgary Flames a better team right away, which helps them in their push for the playoffs this season. But Frost and Farabee are also two guys that could end up being key pieces for the Flames long term, as Morgan Frost is still just 25 years old and is an RFA at the end of the season, and Farabee's only 24 years old and is signed at a cap hit of $5 million for 3 more seasons following this one. Joel Farabee's a guy who's already had a 20-plus goal, 50-point season. Morgan Frost has came close to a 20-goal, 50-point season, as in 2022-23 he finished with 19 goals and 46 points. I think it's a really smart move for a team like the Calgary Flames, who could definitely use the help offensively, to buy low on two young NHL players who have had really productive seasons in the past that are just having a down year this season and sort of fell out of favor with their former coach being John Tortorella. And the Flames really didn't have to give up much to make this move happen either. Andrei Kuzmenko, for the most part this season, was a non-factor for the Calgary Flames. He had been a healthy scratch for them at times. Jacob Pelletier, sure, he's still a young player that is a former first-round draft pick, but he cleared waivers earlier this season. Really, the most valuable asset that Calgary gave up here was a 2025 second-round draft pick. Now, quickly finishing up by talking about this deal from the point of view of the Flyers, to me, this really just screamed cap dump. Sure, they took some salary back in acquiring Andrei Kuzmenko, but Kuzmenko's deal is up at the end of this season. Well, like I said earlier in the video, Farabee is still signed for 3 more seasons following this one at a cap hit of $5 million. In the case of both Frost and Farabee, their ice time was down this season in Philadelphia compared to last season, and like I said, it really just seems like both of them kind of fell out of favor with head coach John Tortorella. These are two guys that I definitely think will benefit from a change of scenery, and I feel like the Flyers probably felt the same way. So they give Farabee and Frost a fresh start by making this trade and gain some cap flexibility for this summer, while also getting a second-round draft pick and a relatively young player in Pelletier who could maybe turn out to be something for them. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those are my quick thoughts on the 2 trades that happened in the NHL over the last 24 hours. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, especially if you're a fan of any of the teams that were involved in either of the trades that we talked about in this video. Sound off down below in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling. If you made it all this way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave a like. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does help out the videos a ton. And be sure to hit that subscribe button if you are new, because we're going to be making videos just like this, breaking down all of the big trades that happen between now and the trade deadline.